students, good afternoon. How are you? Welcome to one more class at Aprender e Estudar em Casa. My name is Lindsay Monteiro. I am your English teacher. Students, remember that COVID is outside. So, before start our lesson, I want to read you some recommendations. Regular hand washing, thoroughly cooking meat and eggs, covering mouth and nose when coughing and sneezing, avoid contact with anyone coughing and sneezing. Well, to this lesson, we are going to learn a verb tense. It's not that new, but let's just revise some important topics. The summary is the uses of past simple, regular and irregular verbs, and then we have practice. Guys, before start our lesson, I want to read you a small text just to introduce our lesson. Mario was a smart boy. He lived in a small town called Corona Village. The people there had to wear masks all the time, wash hands frequently, and keep certain distance from each other. This is not funny, he complained. I want to live in a free and healthy world. Well, in order to survive, they had to follow all the instructions the Ministry of Health gave them. It took some time until everything got normal. Mario and his family protected themselves and they survived that pandemic time. It was a rough time, but everything ended up fine. Alone, we cannot beat this invisible enemy, but together we are stronger. So keep doing your part and all things will get better. Well, this text talks about a boy named Mario, and he was living in a pandemic time just like we are now. So he had to take some measure in order to keep safe and help their family to survive during that rough time. As you could notice, students, there were some underlined words like was, lived, had, complain. Well, those words are past form of the verbs. So, you may be asking, what is the past simple? When do we use them? So, let's check. Well, first of all, we use the past simple of the verbs when we want to talk about actions or events that happened at specific time in the past. For example, I left school in 2003. I saw Susan yesterday. Second, to describe a series of completed actions or events in the past. For example, I opened the door, took off my shoes, put water in the kettle, and called my mom. The third, to talk about a routine or habit which took place in the past. I played tennis when I was a child. Well, students, these three are some examples when we can use the past simple. But probably you are asking yourselves like, how can I know that I'm dealing with a past simple? Well, in order to know that you are dealing with a past simple, there are few words you should take in consideration. For example, we have yesterday, today morning, last summer, last week, a month ago, a week ago, last month, last year. For example, last summer I went to Santo Antão. These words are the sign words to show you that you are dealing with a past simple. They are very important when you are describing a past habit that happened in the past. Well, let's see how do we form it. There are some rules we should follow whenever we want to form the past simple. Students, before start, you should know that the verbs are divided in two groups. We have the regular verbs and we have the irregular verbs. Well, in order to form the regular verb, we just add an ed at the end of the principal verb. For example, my dad carried all the boxes. Could you notice that the verb carry, we cut up the y and we add an ed. So the ed, we use it just for the regular verbs, okay? So now, let's check how can we form the irregular verbs. The irregular verb is gonna need like a little bit more effort from you because you need a specific list where you will find the irregular verbs because they are irregular and they need some changes. They are super different from the regular verbs. So I have an example here. Mary spoke on the phone with her friend. Could you notice? The verb speak in the past simple become spoke, okay? So let's see now, how do we form it? How do we form the sentence using the regular verbs and sentences using the irregular verb? Let's check with me, guys. So, for the affirmative, we have the subject plus the past simple of the verb. Example, I studied math yesterday. The verb study becomes studied. Guys, did you notice that the verb study ends with a consonant plus y? Whenever you found a verb that ends with a consonant plus y, we drop the y and we add an IED, okay? That's the right form. So let's come with me and see the other changes. In the negative, we have subject plus did not or didn't plus the infinitive of the verb. I didn't study math yesterday. You could notice that we have didn't. Didn't is the auxiliary verb. Auxiliary verbs have the function to make all the changes we need whenever we are using the negative. And last one, we have the interrogative. Here we change the auxiliary verb with the subject. Did plus subject plus the infinitive of the verb. Did you study math yesterday? Don't forget the question mark. Let's move on to the irregular verbs. The irregular verbs too, they follow almost the same rules as the regular verb, except in the affirmative verb, we don't need the auxiliary verb, so we make the changes at the principal verb. For example, my mother came back home 2 hours ago. My mother came back. The verb came is the past simple of the verb to come. Negative, we're still keeping with the auxiliary verb did, subject plus did not or didn't plus the infinitive of the verb. My mother didn't come back home 2 hours ago. With the interrogative, we have the same thing. Did plus the subject plus the infinitive of the verb. Did my mother come back home 2 hours ago? Remember, guys, always use the auxiliary verb did whenever you are forming the negative or the interrogative, okay? So now it's time to practice. Yes, I want to check if you really understood what I was saying here. So it's exercise time. Well, student, as I said before, now we have exercise time. So I brought here a small text where you are going to put the verbs into the past simple. Remember, guys, here we have mixed verbs. You will find regular and irregular verbs as well, so pay attention. Don't forget your list of the irregular verbs. So, last year I go to England on holiday. It be fantastic. I visit a lot of interesting places. I be with 2 friends of mine. In the mornings we walk in the streets of London. In the evening, we space go to pubs. The weather space be strangely fine. It space not rain a lot. But we space see some beautiful rainbows. Where space spend you your last holiday? I'm going to give you some minutes for you to solve this, and then we are going to correct the exercise together. Well, I know that you did a great job, but let's correct the exercise together, okay? So, last year I went to England on holiday. Yes, the past simple of the verb go is went. Second, it was fantastic. Yes. Verb to be has two ways to form it. We have was and were. See, I visited a lot of interesting places. I was with two friends of mine. Here, visit is a regular verb. That's why we add an ed at the end of the verb. Move on. In the mornings, we walked in the streets of London. The same thing here. Walk is a regular verb and we add an ed. In the evening, we went to pubs. The weather was strangely fine. It didn't rain a lot. See? Here we have a negative, so that's why we use an auxiliary verb, did. But we saw some beautiful rainbows. Past simple of the verb see, saw. Where did you spend your last holiday? So here we have an interrogative sentence, so that's why we use did plus the subject plus the verb into the infinitive. Remember guys, whenever you have the auxiliary verb, we don't make any change at the principal verb. Well guys, well done. I know that you did such a great job, but let's move on to the second exercise. Here you have to write the past form of the irregular verbs. Guys, they are just irregular verbs. So, as I said before, and I will repeat it again, use your list of the irregular verbs. I'm going to give you some minutes and then we'll come back and we will correct it together. let's correct, guys, the last exercise. So, the past simple of the verb drive is drove. Yes, guys, it's drove. Meet, met. Yes, met. Put. Interesting, right? Yes, we have some verbs that they don't change. But the fact that they don't change doesn't mean that they are not the regular verb. They are. Do, done, sit, sat, speak, spoke, write, wrote, be, was or were. As I said before, verb to be has two ways to form it. We have was and were. It depends on the subject. Go, went, and buy, bought. See, guys, it's super easy. As long as you have the list of the regular verb, you will be able to form any sentence in the past using the irregular verbs. Well, we are almost at the end of our lesson, but before to let you go, I want to give you a small homework. Well, guys, I want you to tell me, how was your weekend? What did you do? Tell me in few lines. See, you are going to tell me what you did at your last weekend. And next class, I am going to check if you did it. Let's review some important topics that we saw today at our class. Today, we were studying the past simple of the regular and irregular verbs. And we saw that with the regular verbs, we use an ed in order to form it. For the irregular verbs, you will need the specific verb list to help you. We saw that in order to form the negative and the interrogative, you will need the auxiliary verb did. For example, I did my English homework yesterday. Did you do your English homework yesterday? Students, my lesson was based on ESL Collective and my English pages. Please feel free to consult them or ask your teacher for help. Dear students, this was our lesson at Aprender e Estudar em Casa. Take care of yourself, guys, protect yourself, and see you next class. Bye!